Okay. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Juanita Ford with Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador and the COO, and we will host today's webinar. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar on Stay and Charge. Is plugging into the EV market right for your business? Today, we are joined with the team of Take Charge NL with Peter Upshaw, he's the engineer with Take Charge, and Keith Barrett, manager of Take Charge at Newfoundland Power. We are also joined for some other members of the Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro team, and they are available as well to consult on this project. Peter and Keith will discuss the plan for electric vehicles and charging stations throughout the province, as well as share some information on what might mean for tourism and hospitality businesses in Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome to you both. We are thrilled to have you here today and lead this webinar. We are recording the webinar and we'll have it available after. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. For the purpose of the Zoom webinar, participants can ask questions in the Q&A box or in the chat window. So please do that throughout the session. After the presentation, there will be a Q&A section and your questions will be addressed. So without further delay, I'd like to pass it over the webinar to Take Charge and their presentation. So take it away, Peter and Keith.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning and to have the opportunity. I should start out by saying that we'll be talking about electric vehicles mainly. The industry is really moving along. If you watch a movie or maybe the hockey game on a Saturday night, you'll probably see the manufacturers of vehicles starting to tout what's coming down the road, so to speak. So I appreciate the fact that it's a kind of a long-term view on electric vehicles, and especially in the context of the COVID year that we've lived through and are still living through. You know, everybody's been hit hard by COVID, and I would say that it's hard to think of an industry, maybe the transportation industry, the airline industry, that's been hit as hard as hospitality and the lack of tourists and so on. So again, just want to put it in the context that we are certainly sensitive to the fact that we're talking about electric vehicles. It's a forward-looking topic, and but we do want to give you a view at this point about what is coming, and see how you might be able to make some opportunities for yourself, and certainly we are here to support you. So it is a Take Charge initiative that's happening, and that is a combination of Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. We work together to bring you Take Charge. The presentation that we'll be delivering today is also part of a larger project funded in part by Natural Resources Canada. So we'd like to recognize that and thank them for their contributions, and also thank Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador for giving us this opportunity, and of course you for taking some time out of your schedule to be with us today. And the topic is Stay in Charge, is plugging into the EV market right for you. So let's get going. So as Juanita said, microphones are muted at this point. We love interaction, we love questions, so please don't hesitate to jump in with a question. Keith Barrett will be moderating today. He's the manager of energy conservation. So if you put some questions in the chat room, he'll be keeping an eye on that and trying to find the right time to jump in with those questions into the session. So please, as I say, we welcome questions. I love to see questions and people engaged. Next. So here's the overview of the presentation. We'll do a little EV 101, and EV stands for electric vehicles. So I'll use that EV quite a bit today. It's electric vehicles that we're really talking about. So EVs, you'll hear me say it, electric vehicles. That's where that's what we're all about today. And we'll talk about EVs are here, the North American view, as well as the Newfoundland and Labrador view of where we are and where things are heading. And then we'll touch on that plugging into the EV market, how you can do it, the benefits of electric vehicles, and a little bit about charging electric vehicles. Next. So now we're ready to jump right in and have a closer look at the various types of electric vehicles and charging infrastructure for them. So there are really two main types of electric vehicles. One is the all electric, and there's a battery, and that's what powers the car, and that's what moves it down the road. And then there's also a hybrid EV. So you plug it in, but there's also a gas engine, just like the old cars. And so what happens with those hybrid type vehicles, the plug-in hybrids, is that it has a limited range of 50 to 60 kilometers, maybe a little bit more, depending on the model that you buy. And then after that, the gas kicks in. And you'd be amazed at how many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians only drive about 50 or 60 kilometers a day. It's really the vast majority. And so those types of vehicles can be a nice fit for people. And in that case, it gives them the opportunity to use the gas part of the engine after they get, after they use up all the battery power. So two main types, the all electric vehicle, which is primarily what we'll be talking about, but there's also an option for a hybrid electric where you have batteries that bring you 50 or 60 kilometers, we'll say, and then the gas engine kicks in. Next. So there are more and more models coming to the market, and there's more charging stations throughout the province. The ranges of electric vehicles and the battery power is getting better. So what we'll be seeing over the next number of years is that more drivers will be switching from gas to electric. And electric vehicles are here. So let's take a look at the growing number of EVs on the road in North America, and then have a look at our province in particular. So our neighbors to the south in the US, they have more electric vehicles on the road, about 1.5 million compared to Canada's 160,000 or so. But we actually have a higher percentage of EVs at about 3.5% of all registered vehicles compared to the Americans' 2%. So we're actually a little bit ahead of the Americans. And in a move to increase electric vehicle adoption rates in Canada, the federal government announced national targets for electric vehicles. So their target is 10% of vehicle sales by the year 2025, 30% of electric sales by 2030, and 100% of electric vehicle sales by the year 2040. So that may seem ambitious, but things are really moving on the electric vehicle front. So they introduced the federal government introduced a $5,000 incentive on the purchase of EVs. That was introduced in 2019. And since then, electric vehicle sales have increased by 30% compared to the same period a year earlier. We'll talk a little bit more about other federal rebates a little bit later in the presentation. And as recently as the first and second quarters of 2020, 3.5% of new vehicle sales registered in Canada were electric vehicles. So it's already starting to move. We can see that. In terms of Newfoundland in 2019, and this is on the vacationer front, about 81% of all vacation visitors to our province arriving from Canada, or arrived from Canada, I should say. So that's where most of our vacationers and visitors are coming from. 57% came from Ontario, Quebec, and about 20% of overall vacation visitors were automobile travelers. So most of the electric vehicles sold in Canada are being sold in Ontario and Quebec. So try to put it in a bit of context that as we see, more of those people coming back to the province, we'll see more people driving electric vehicles. So it'll be something to keep an eye on. in the future. Next. And so we see that electric vehicle interest and sales are increasing in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Right now, there are over 190 electric vehicles on the road, and there are additional plug-in hybrids as well that are not counted in that number. So the number is still quite modest, but just a few years ago, back in 2015, there were only 41. So things are starting to move. And we certainly believe that interest in electric vehicles is growing amongst customers. In a recent survey, about 25% of people said that they were interested in purchasing an electric vehicle. And that's in Newfoundland and Labrador. And that's up from 17% the year before. So with our own Newfoundlanders and Labradorians traveling domestically, some of those people are going to be driving EVs. Next.
Peter, we had a question
Yep.
here from Rick.
Yep.
So what are the percentage of new vehicle sales in Newfoundland that are electric? And it wasn't quite shown on that slide, but I believe it will be less than 1% of annual vehicle sales in the province right now.
Right. So yeah, definitely. Right now the number is quite small. So we're a little bit behind the curve, and we're going to start to talk about, potentially some of the reasons for that, and maybe more importantly, this part of the solution to that. So right now there are over 190 all-electric vehicles on the road in the province. There are over 50 public charging stations across Newfoundland and Labrador, with more being added. So those public charging stations are an important part of the puzzle, especially fast chargers, where people can get a quick charge, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. More and more dealers in Newfoundland and Labrador are able to sell electric vehicles. Our Take Charge website has a list of those dealers and provides a contact for an electric vehicle enthusiast at each location. So each of those dealers. So that's a great thing. You know exactly who to ask for when people that are interested are reaching out to find out more about electric vehicles. And there are over 25 dealers listed on our website right now. So it's a good place for people to go to get more information. Our Take Charge NL website, and we've got an electric vehicle section. We're also seeing more and more vehicle manufacturers adding models every year. And just to give you a taste of where things are going, by 2025, GM, General Motors, will offer 30 electric models and plans to stop making gas vehicles by 2035. So that's where they stand. They've got a great commercial on TV. If you catch it, I've seen it a couple times in the last few days. Ford will be going fully electric in Europe by 2030 and will offer a fully electric F-150 by 2022. So they'll have their F-150 pickup truck available next year. And I think we can appreciate that that's an important thing for a lot of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, is to have electric pickups. So they're coming as well. Volvo announced this month their plans to go fully electric by 2030. The federal government has an incentive of up to $5,000 to make EVs more affordable. So if you're buying a new EV, the vast majority will be eligible for a $5,000 rebate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. Fuel costs are much, much less with an electric vehicle, and you save about 70% if you drive electric. So you're not going to the gas station, you are charging with electricity, and the cost is only about 30% of what you would be paying for gas to drive the equivalent number of kilometers or miles per year. And electric vehicle prices are coming down. We expect, and the industry expects, cost parity by about 2025. So that means that the cost for a new comparable gas-powered vehicle and an electric vehicle will be about the same by 2025. Next. So we want to talk a little bit about charging. So as I alluded to, no more trips to the gas station with an all-electric vehicle. If you've got that plug-in hybrid, you'll still have a few trips. But for the all-electric, charging is what you need to do to fuel up with electricity and to charge batteries. So to put it in context, over 95% of charging happens either at home or at work, and the vast majority would take place at home. In the tourism world, in some cases, your guests are their home away from home. So they'll some of them will need to be charged, and we'll talk a little bit more about where they might get charges too in a little bit. So there are mainly 3 types of chargers, and we call them level 1, level 2, and level 3. A level 1 just plugs into a regular 120 volt outlet. So the one that would be on the side of a house. It's a slow charge. It replenishes the batteries at a rate of about 5 kilometers per hour. So that's the slowest of the 3 types. Next, level 2 chargers, and these would be the most common type of chargers out there, certainly the most common that you would see at regular public stations, and the main type, essentially the only type that you would see people installing at home, unless they just use the regular plug-in type. The charging rate is much faster. It's about 40 kilometers for every hour of charge. So again, for the typical commuting person who's driving about 50 kilometers a day, that's just over a little more than an hour to replenish the batteries. So that works very well for most people. And lastly, there are level 3 chargers, and these are also called DC fast chargers. And they charge at a rate of about 300 to 400 kilometers per hour. So they're the type that you would see along the highway and for long distance travel. And the province is in the process of getting about 14 of those stations across the province. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the EV market, one easy way to get started is by researching charging stations in your area. There's some great websites like Charge Hub and PlugShare that can help you see if there are any charging stations nearby you. You could, as one form of promotion, you could consider letting customers know where these nearby charging stations are. Put detail on your website or use your social media channels to promote where charging stations are relative to you. There are over 50 local chargers listed on these sites currently in the province, and there are certainly lots more coming. They would be a combination of level 2 and level 3 chargers, and many more chargers to come. Next. So by the end of 2021, we're hoping and expecting that there could be 33 direct current fast chargers, or those level 3 chargers, right across the province. And those are the ones that charge very quickly. And people need to see those out there and appreciate the fact that they're available. That's part of what EV owners want to see before they make their decision to purchase an electric vehicle. 14 of those sites will be up and running in the coming weeks, and those are indicated in blue on that map. Hopefully everybody can see those. They're spread across essentially the Trans-Canada Highway, and they start to make their way up the Northern Peninsula a little bit. And with these types of chargers, there will likely be future opportunities for your business to apply to host a level 3 charging station. So as we expand the network in the future, we'll be looking for people that are interested in hosting one of those sites. So in years past, not so long ago, but before COVID, over 90,000 out of province visitors were arriving by automobile. And with over 3% of Canadian vehicles being fully electric and many more being plug-in hybrids, you can expect to see some of your guests driving electric vehicles. So part of the question is plugging into the EV market right for your business? So let's look at some of the considerations here. Next. As a member of the hospitality industry, you could consider the following. How can you attract electric vehicle drivers to your business? Is an electric vehicle right for you personally? And is an EV a good choice for a vehicle that you could use for your business? Next. So what are some of the benefits of electric vehicles? Well, electricity is a cheaper source of fuel than gas, and fuel costs are about 70% lower for electricity versus gas. That's for an all-electric vehicle. If you have a plug-in hybrid, you can expect to save about 50% in fuel costs. Electric vehicles also offer the benefit of reduced maintenance. There's less fluids to change, so there's no oil changes, no transmission fluid. There's fewer mechanical moving parts, for example. So that's a positive thing from a maintenance side. Plug-in hybrid vehicles do have a gas and electric motor, so they're still going to require essentially the same level of maintenance. For the all-electric vehicle, they use what they call regenerative braking. So when you actually apply the brakes, the vehicle uses electric engines to slow or little generators to slow the vehicle down. So you have nowhere near the same wear and tear on your brakes. And I've got a couple of vehicles, probably like many Newfoundland families, and I know, doing brake jobs is probably every 2 years for sure. I have to do a brake job. So those sorts of things can be significantly reduced with electric vehicles. And no gas means more convenience. So you just drive home and plug in right in your own driveway. So that means you don't have to make trips to the gas station. And what's interesting for the hospitality industry is that refueling is not limited to gas stations. So some gas stations across the province will be adding DC fast chargers, but there will be other businesses that offer fast charging, and they're not gas stations. For example, Splash and Putt Resort in Glovertown, Eddie's Restaurant in Southbrook, Days Inn in Stephenville. Those will all be planning to install fast chargers in the future. So there's opportunities for more than just gas stations. And if you've never driven an electric vehicle, you will be impressed by how it drives. It's got a lot of pickup at the beginning. When you push on the pedal, the vehicle responds immediately, and it's pretty impressive to drive one. They are, of course, very environmentally friendly as well, because of course they're not burning gas, so they're not generating carbon dioxide. And in Newfoundland right now, about a third or 32% of our provincial greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector. So that can be a big benefit in the future. There are some other perks as an EV owner. Public charging stations are often in convenient parking spaces, close to the door, so you can get some prime parking spots. A lot of times businesses offer free charging, and there's a great local community of EV drivers who are willing to share learned experiences and information with current and potential EV owners. So they've got a tight-knit community now. Next.
Peter, I'll interrupt here.
Yep.
We do have a question from Chris.
Yep.
So this is a good question, unique one for sure.
Yep.
So with companies such as Zero Motorcycles teaming up with Polaris to electrify their off-road fleet, and electric snowmobiles about to come into market this year, have there been any considerations given to how off-road vehicles will integrate or access current or future charging infrastructure?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And, I think that the electric vehicles are leading the way in terms of, your road vehicles. The others are coming. And I guess maybe in short, I would say, I'm not sure how it's going to fit in exactly. Hopefully they'll be able to charge with, with all the same infrastructure that's in place. And for personal vehicle owners, the vast majority will do charging at home. So, you would be looking at installing your own charger at home or using that plug-in just in a regular outlet. That may work for you. So it's perhaps a little more forward-looking than we're doing at this point, but hopefully the industry is considering that from a charging perspective. Does that answer the question, Keith?
Yeah, I think so. And there will be a few charging stations as well in areas where people would typically go to get gasoline today for those type of off-road vehicles. You may find a charging station in a gas station, for example, which may or may not have access off, the trails or whatever that you're using. But yeah, certainly the focus right now is on the on-road vehicle infrastructure, but it is a good point, Chris. And something that as we begin to promote charging infrastructure and private investment in charging infrastructure, there may be more people who are, outfitters or trail associations and things like that may consider putting in some charging infrastructure to make this seamless for those off-road vehicles.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Please don't hesitate to keep them coming. So in terms of electric vehicle considerations, it is a major purchase. So obviously people want to do lots of research and figure out how they can fit into their own lives. Some of the main considerations are charging infrastructure. So how will you charge your vehicle? There is a significant added upfront cost that you want to be aware of, and just to make sure you're educated and doing your research. So in terms of charging infrastructure, most people are concerned about, they have what they call range anxiety. Will I be able to make it to my destination? Is there enough charging for me? And right now, Newfoundland and Labrador has the least number of public chargers amongst the Canadian provinces, so we have to acknowledge that. We've got some ground to make up, but the number is consistently growing. And as I mentioned earlier, within the next few months, there will be another 14 additional DC fast chargers spread right across the province. And there will be more by the end of 2021 as well. That's the plan. And this is the type of charging that people want to see to ease some of those concerns about being able to reach their destinations, particularly on longer road trips. That capital cost is significant. It's about $19,000 or $20,000 more to purchase an electric vehicle compared to a gas-powered vehicle, and I'll say on average. There are those federal incentives that are available, and Take Charge also hopes to be able to offer incentives to help with that upfront cost as well. So that's part of our plan, but those plans do need to be approved by the Public Utilities Board. So we're in the process of moving ahead with that, but we have to wait for the approval, of course. And many customers are just not aware of electric vehicles and how they can be a viable option, how the ranges have increased so much over the last number of years, and can really serve your purposes very well. So Take Charge has launched a comprehensive website in 2020, which was also partially funded by Natural Resources Canada. And the purpose and prime objective is to help customers decide if an electric vehicle is the right choice for them. And as mentioned, we also have other initiatives planned to provide customers with information on electric vehicles and learn more. Next.
We just do have another quick question here, Peter.
Yeah.
I may be able to address this. So this comes from
Okay.
Greg. Is it possible now or in the near future that locations that offer charging stations will be added features to search on GPS? My answer is I don't really know. I guess that's up to the GPS manufacturers. I'm not sure if anyone, I'm currently not an electric vehicle owner, for full disclosure. So I'm not sure if anyone who is a current EV owner and using GPS services know if this is available widely on the GPS function. But certainly as the EV market continues to grow, and the fact that you can go in your GPS and say search local gas stations, I would hope at some point you'll be able to say search local charging stations as well. And there are those other resources that Peter mentioned, those websites to kind of identify the charging stations, but no, it would be a great feature to have in your GPS to have that one tap function to say, get me to the nearest one.
Yeah, some of those websites like PlugShare and others, they got lots of neat options, I must say. They can help you plan a road trip and that type of thing for sure. So thinking about EVs as part of any fleet vehicles that you have, and some considerations. There are more and more models available. Trucks are coming, next year to get started. And as we move along, there will just be more and more vehicle choices and options available. They offer lower fuel and maintenance costs compared to the regular gas-powered vehicles. So that's great. And again, our Take Charge website has a model review tool that you can go and see all the different vehicles and models that are available to you. And I will say that of the electric vehicles in Newfoundland, a lot of them were purchased used. So that is also an option for people to look at the used EV market. They tend to have a longer life and work quite well over those extended periods. So it's something worth checking out. And of course, that means you're going to pay less for those vehicles as well. So a typical Newfoundlander only travels about 50 kilometers a day. That's about what their driving is. Obviously, that can be higher for some people, no doubt about it. And all electric vehicles typically have a range of 80 to 400 kilometers and can easily accommodate that daily commute. And it's also important to note that you don't need to have your electric vehicle fully charged all the time, just the same way. I guess we don't need to have our phones fully charged all the time. So there are those maintenance savings with electric vehicles. And another question that can come up in Newfoundland is, can the electric vehicle handle winter weather? And the primary impact of cold weather on electric vehicles is a reduced driving range. So that can be fairly significant, maybe about 30% reduction in your range. We have an electric Bolt here at Newfoundland Power that we use. It has a top range of about 350 kilometers, and when the temperature is down -5 or so, then you're going to notice it on the range, and you're going to get that 30% or so reduction in the driving range. So that's the main thing that you would see, is that the driving range is a little bit less, but it can still drives well. And some people might argue, drives better than a gas vehicle, because you have a fair amount of weight right very low down over the wheelbase. So certainly, if you got a long drive, keep that in mind for winter. But I know Norway, which is a little further north than us and quite a bit colder, they've got a very high proportion of electric vehicles, and they work quite well there in the cold weather. Next slide. Oh, am I? Oh, sorry. I think I got myself on the wrong. Oh, there you go. All right. So the federal government has been offering and continues to offer an incentive of up to $5,000 on new residential or commercial electric vehicles. So that's great to see. There's also some tax benefits with an electric vehicle. So you'll have to talk to someone smarter than me, your accountant, figure out how that can work for you. But there are tax benefits of electric vehicles as well. So for the federal incentives, they range from $2,500 for short range or plug-in hybrids up to $5,000 for all electric and longer range vehicles as well. So, nice incentive there to bring down the cost. And to be eligible for those incentives, consumers have to purchase or lease a new vehicle with 6 seats or fewer. So, your regular passenger type vehicle. And the price can be a maximum of $45,000. So those are a couple of details, but certainly if you want to check that out more, the federal government will have lots of information on their website. Next.
Peter, before you jump into this one, and it may be something you can touch on about installing level 2, but Rick has asked, what are the electrical load requirements for a fast charger?
Okay, all right, good question. And I'll say they're pretty significant. We plan to install some 50 kilowatt fast chargers, and most, if not all, the ones that Hydro has been installing are 60 kilowatt fast chargers. So that's quite a significant load. There would need to be infrastructure upgrades, electricity distribution upgrades to be able to facilitate that. So yeah, it's pretty significant. Something that you probably wouldn't be able to run off an existing building for sure. Hopefully that answers that question. Let me know if it doesn't, Rick, or if there's something else in particular. So installing a level 2 charger, it's a longer term investment, and you want to keep a few things in mind. That you need the charger itself, and you see a picture of a pedestal type charger, but there's some additional costs to get power out to that charger, for example. So there would be some excavation work, there might be some paving work and so on, repair work that you would have to do. There are different options of level 2 charger. You could mount one on the side of a wall, you could have a pedestal type like you see in the picture, and they will have different costs. On the lower end, for a simple wall mount, you'd be looking at something in the order of $1,200 to $1,500. On the other end, for a pedestal type, the cost might be around $6,000 or so, and then you would have to add on whatever excavation type work you might need to do if there was repaving, that type of thing. So just to give you an idea about the range of costs for those level 2 chargers, and they are the most common type that people would have be installing on their own property, be it a commercial or residential property. How much does it cost to charge the vehicle itself? So when somebody pulls up in a vehicle, how much electricity? What's the cost of supplying those batteries? And for a Tesla Model 3, for a full charge, you'd be looking at about $10. For a Chevy Bolt, the cost for a full charge would be about $8. And for a Nissan Leaf, it will be in the $5 to $8 range. And again, those are full chargers, not just top-ups, I'll call them, where you've got a fair amount of power left in your batteries already.
Peter, got a couple of more questions here. So
Yep.
Amanda asked, did you say that the lot would have to be paved? And no, not necessarily to run the level 2. You would not require paving as long as it's covered. Right. And Rick asked about a level 2 residential charger. So what, I guess, are the requirements, electrical load requirements for those?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So for a residential level 2 type charger, you would need to have a 240 volt circuit, and typically they would go up to 7 kilowatts of power requirement. It doesn't have to be that high. It can be less, but that would be kind of the maximum. But you would need a 240 volt circuit, so the same type that you would have your stove or hot water boiler or electric resistance heat on, and one of those available, and then you could put it on a 30 or 40 amp breaker, depending on what type of charger you were installing. And it's interesting because a lot of the brains for the charging is inside the vehicle itself. It will determine how quickly it can charge based on the available power in the 240 volt circuit. So hopefully that answers the question. And Keith, I guess you touched on it. I may have not made that clear, but in terms of installing one on a property, a commercial property in particular, if you put it in a place where you had to disturb the pavement and then put it back to the way it was before, but there's certainly no requirement that an area be paved. Yeah.
A couple more questions coming in. We
Yes.
seem to have hit our stride.
Good.
And you'll like these, Peter, because I think the answer to both of them is going to be it depends. And I know
Yeah,
that's always a good
depends,
answer. So the first question is from Amanda: is how long can you drive on a full charge from St. John's to Clarenville? But once again, Peter, you can answer, but the answer will be it depends.
Yeah, it's interesting because the average range for 2020 vehicles was around about 400 kilometers. So that's the maximum range. And then you're going to need a charge, and most people are going to charge it up before they hit the maximum. But you can compare that to, I think it was probably 2013 when the average was about 220 kilometers. So in about 7 years, the range has gone from 220 kilometers on average to an average of 400 kilometers. So there are certainly vehicles out there that would have greater range than 400 kilometers as well, but that would be the average. And just to make the point that number is going up, and at the risk of getting too detailed, battery costs have really come down a lot in recent years, and they continue to come down. So that makes it easier or less expensive for manufacturers to increase the driving range with electric vehicles. So that's great to see.
Yeah. And the second question we have here is, any idea what the cost would be for a customer to charge at a level 2 charger?
Yeah. So I tried to touch on that, but again, great to ask the question, because I might say something thinks it makes perfect sense, but not so. So earlier I mentioned, how much does it cost for a full charge for a number of different vehicles? The Tesla Model 3 for a full charge, so going from essentially zero power in the battery to a full charge, it's about $10. And they have a bigger range. So the range is about 420 kilometers. For a Chevy Bolt, it's about $8, and that would be for a range of 383 kilometers, the full driving range of the vehicle. And then for a Nissan Leaf, to get a full charge, it's in the $5 to $8 range. And that covers off at the driving range from 243 kilometers to 363 kilometers. And just as you can go out and you buy a Toyota Corolla or any other type of vehicle, you can buy them with different packages. So I say Nissan Leaf, and it goes from 243 kilometers on the low end to 363. So you can buy different models with different ranges of driving capacity. So the cost for that full charge also will vary a little bit. Great questions, guys.
Yeah, a couple of more.
Yep.
So are businesses expected to collect charges for a charging service or provide free of charge? I can interject on that one. I think it would kind of be up to the business themselves to make that decision on how you want to recover the cost of putting in the charging infrastructure. So that would really be up to the business, I think. And this is a good question. Will tow trucks have onboard chargers, or would they just tow you to the nearest charging station. So if you do run out of range, and that's a good question. And I actually glanced at an article the other day about mobile battery packs that people may have, and tow truck drivers, I guess, or roadside assistants to be able to bring this mobile battery pack, almost like those mobile cell phone packs you have, I guess, that you can pre-charge and plug into your cell phone to get battery.
Mhm.
So do they have them right now, tow trucks on board? I would say probably not. But it's certainly, once again, something that I think will be market driven as we get more electric vehicles. And hopefully we have enough stations so that no one has to get stranded and enough chargers for sure. But yep, the technology is definitely evolving. Good question.
Yeah, and that the network of fast chargers that Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro are putting in right now, on average, they're about 70 kilometers apart across the province. So you can see that, once that's up and running over the next few months, it'll be essentially about a 70-kilometer drive to the next charging station. There's going to be some variability in that, but they will be fairly close together. And then Newfoundland Power, if our plans are approved, will also be installing fast chargers across the province. And another little side note, it was interesting because Tesla has installed a couple of chargers. One, I think, is in Glovertown, and one is in Terra Nova, at the Terra Nova Golf Lodge, for example. So again, as we move along, there will be more and more fast chargers available with that 303 to 400 kilometers per hour of charge sort of capacity. And then there will be additional level 2 chargers, which is a slower charge, 40 kilometers of range per hour. But that works great at residential or overnight parking, for example. People could easily, get a full charge. And if they're tourists that are coming, and they're staying with you overnight, and that could work really good.
And I just want to highlight a note made here by Grant from Hydro that addresses Janet's question probably more directly. So he says it's important to note that charging station owners are permitted to charge a fee to users to allow them to recover the cost of electricity. And a common rate for level 2 charging is around $1.50 an hour.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. Yeah, that is excellent information. Thank you very much, Grant, for pitching in there. So, there are some benefits to having your own EV charging station, the convenience for anybody that's coming to your site, potentially some increased traffic from EV owners, and they can be on site for, 30 to 60 minutes while their vehicle is charging. Certainly demonstrates a commitment to sustainability and to the environment, and you can be joining part of a province-wide charging network. So joining that movement towards increased sustainability and a cleaner environment, for sure. We'll move to the next slide. And just want to promote our Take Charge website. Lots of great information there. If you're thinking about it personally, if you just want to learn a bit more about those, charging options for people, there's a lot of good information on there. Tells you, what local dealers have EVs. Tells you the models and different options of EVs that are there. So it tells you, based on your own driving, how much you can save on an annual basis. So just a really nice spot to go visit and learn a little bit more about EVs. And so as we look across the nation, we can see that electric vehicles are making headlines in the hospitality industry. Hotels are offering charging to their patrons. Municipalities are getting on board to attract visitors to their towns. It's great to see increased interest in electric vehicles across the nation, and that will certainly spill over and give us benefits here in Newfoundland and Labrador. As we see, we're inviting them, we're putting in those fast charging networks so that people can drive right across the province. I've heard stories about Tesla owners in particular, traveling to destinations as a group, as long as they've got charging infrastructure in place, and it's sort of a little bit of a way of life for them. So yeah, things are progressing very well, and continued interest and promotion for EVs and for hospitality as well. Next slide.
Questions? I got a couple more for you, Peter.
Excellent.
So the first one comes from Greg. He's asking, can level 2 or level 3 chargers be installed in an underground garage? And is it possible, if that's possible, who would he get in contact with to kind of arrange for an estimate on an installation of cost for that?
Yeah. First of all, level 2, no problem. You can install level 2 type chargers essentially anywhere. Level 3 should also be possible if it's a commercial situation, that could also work. And what I would suggest in terms of reaching out to people is, contact us. You can send us a note at Take Charge NL. There's an ask a question, or you can send me directly at pupshell@newfoundlandpower.com. So that's pupshell@newfoundlandpower.com if you want to reach out to me directly, or give me a call, 737-2603, 737-2603, and we can help you along the road and let you know what's coming as well in terms of additional financial supports for charging infrastructure.
Perfect. Georgetown Inn, any indication on car rental companies' interest in embracing EVs? I don't have the answer for that one, unfortunately, Peter. I don't know if you have anything to.
Yeah, I don't. I haven't heard anything about the rental companies starting to include electric vehicles in their fleet, but I can certainly see it happening in the future. And oftentimes what you see happening in places like California and even mainland Canada, it's going to happen there before it happens here. So it's pretty quiet on that front, I would say, at this point in time.
I think more vehicles in general in the province for rentals would be a bonus. I hear a lot of stories around summertime of trying to get a vehicle.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have a question here from Teresa. Is there a rebate or incentives for businesses who want to install charging stations?
Yes. And there are more coming from the federal government. You're gonna have to help me out here now, guys. I'm trying to remember if they've been announced. What I would suggest is that if you want to reach out to us directly, we'll do some of that legwork and research for you and find out. Keith, do you know if the federal stuff is coming or if it's
available? I don't think it's been announced yet. I know they do have applications opened up, or did have applications opened up to provide some incentives. And right. The Take Charge, if we get the plan approved, will also have additional rebates available, upwards of $3,000 to put in a level 2 charger. And we will also be looking to have what's called a Make Ready program in place, where we would help cover the cost of running the electrical infrastructure to your charging station, which could reduce the cost by 30 to 40%. So not a lot, I don't think, right now, but looks like there are some things on the very near horizon in
right
regards.
Yeah. So perhaps the best advice I would offer is that reach out to us as you start to move along and consider things are changing quite rapidly. So in 3 months, the landscape and the funding available may be different, and certainly in 6 months, might be a bit different. So we would love to be able to support you as you move down that road and figure out if it's right for you. And certainly a big part of that can be knowing what funding is available. So right now, there's some things that are in the works to be approved and for funding to be available, both through Take Charge ourselves and through others, including the federal government. So so things will be changing, fairly quickly over the next number of months. So please just reach out to us so we can check and see what the what's available on 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or 6 months or 12 months.
All right, I'm not seeing any other active questions right now. So yeah, very engaged group. So guys, thanks for all your questions. Some we weren't able to fully answer, but that's part of this exercise is knowing what we need to know more about as well. So we really thank you for your attention. If any last minute questions want to come in, please send them. But thanks, Peter, for all this, and thanks for our audience for being so engaged. And it's very encouraging to see the number of people who have attended and that level of engagement, those type of questions we saw come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, great to see it. And as I said, I know that COVID has been hard on a lot of people and hard on the hospitality industry for sure. We're all hopeful that vaccinations over the coming months will start to alleviate the impacts of the pandemic, and hopefully it'll be there to salvage a summer for all of us, but for hospitality in particular. And then those EVs are pardon the pun, coming down the road over the next number of years. We'll all be seeing the impacts of that. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're like me, you skip a lot of commercials on the PVR. But if you actually watch a show and watch commercials, they're really starting to show up. So that's definitely a sign that the car manufacturers are all hurrying to get on board.
Peter, one last question. If you could repeat your phone number again, someone
Yes.
may want to contact you.
Yeah, by all means. Of course, it's 709, but 737-2603. That's 737-2603. And I'd welcome your calls. And if I can make another bit of a shameless pitch on the Take Charge side, we do offer business rebates for efficiency upgrades, lighting, heat pumps, a couple of the more common ones. So if you're thinking about doing any lighting or other upgrades that are going to impact your energy use, please reach out to us. And again, you can give me a call. Love to have a chat with you and give you some advice and hopefully be able to offer some rebates or incentives to support you.
Great. Thanks, Peter and Keith. Thanks for joining us today, and the team at Take Charge NL for leading the webinar, and to the teams at Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Hydro. I'd like to extend a special thank you to all of our members and industry professionals who attended today. Please keep an eye out for any future webinars on our website and in our e-newses. Additionally, please reach out to the staff of Hospitality NL should you have any further questions. They'd be happy to speak to you regarding your business needs, and we can funnel any specific questions to the Take Charge team. Enjoy the rest of your week and stay safe. Thank you.